You're listening to a production of the National Media Archive. To learn more or volunteer, go to nationalmediaarchive.com.
Forget the hype. Forget the influencer-filled posts, all those glamorized videos showing Dubai's mega projects and endless luxury. They've been paid to sell a polished version of reality. If you're thinking of making the move, stop right there. Forget what you've seen. What they don't show is the truth behind the fake beaches, the towering skyscrapers, and the plastic luxury. Dubai, modern-day utopia. It's a ticking time bomb, built on sand and hope. Dubai's image has been crafted for years. It's the place where luxury meets excess, a playground for the rich, a haven for influencers and wealthy business people looking to escape taxes. A paradise where beachfront apartments and a life of ease seem within reach. But here's the catch. It's all for show. You see the pristine streets, the polished architecture, and all that shiny stuff, but dig deeper and the cracks start to show. Dubai's economy has been largely built on oil money, and the push to diversify has resulted in extravagant projects. But beneath it all, there's a desperation to stay relevant, to stay rich. The UAE knows the oil won't last forever, and they're trying to create a future where they still matter once the wells run dry. The difference between what's shown and what's really going on is staggering. Here's the thing. You type in Dubai on YouTube, and you're either going to see a video calling out the city's human rights abuses, or you'll see one of those glossy vlogs from influencers showing off the high life. So what's the truth? Well, both are kind of right. If you're rich, Dubai can look like paradise. Beachfront properties, no taxes, a booming economy, all perfect for an Instagram lifestyle. Everything you could dream of is there. Fast cars, luxury brands, towering buildings that scream success. But for the majority, it's a mirage. The people who really make the city run are the ones who get forgotten. The ones working the hardest, living in squalor, with their rights completely disregarded. Take the Dubai model. It's a city designed for the wealthy, powered by cheap, exploited labor. Young influencers and hopefuls pour in every year, lured by promises of fame and fortune. But only a select few ever make it big. For the rest, the fantasy fades fast. And then they're left with few options. They turn to the only way they can survive, the infamous Dubai party industry. It's hard to even call it an industry. It's the seedy underbelly of Dubai's glitzy, Instagram-friendly surface. Models are lured into exploitative situations with offers of free flights, luxury stays, and tens of thousands of dollars for turning their dignity into a commodity. It's dark, disturbing stuff, things that go beyond what should ever be allowed to happen in any modern city. And yet, this is all part of Dubai's unspoken reality. This is the dark side no one talks about. It's hidden away, locked behind corporate doors and PR gloss. It's buried in the sand, ignored by the city's elite and its government. The ugly truth is simple. Dubai's riches come at a terrible cost, and it's the workers, the ones you never see, that pay the price. Dubai's entire identity is built on luxury. It's marketed as the dream city, an oasis of opportunity for the rich. But look closer, and you'll see that everything is a performance. The Emirati government has spent trillions shaping the city into what it is today, a global tourism capital, a hub for real estate, finance, and trade. They've spared no expense in constructing luxury hotels, world-renowned attractions, and projects that seem designed to impress, not to last. Behind the glamour, the city is built on a dangerous lie. Dubai's skyline isn't a testament to innovation. It's a showcase of what happens when wealth is concentrated in the hands of a few, leaving the rest of the population to struggle in the shadows. The city's most iconic structures, like the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, are plagued with their own problems. For all the attention the Burj Khalifa gets, it's still not immune to the city's deeper flaws. The construction was marred by accusations of worker abuse, with laborers being paid a fraction of what they were promised. And let's not even talk about the sewage system. It's so inadequate that it needs fleets of trucks just to handle the waste generated by the building. Not exactly what you'd expect from the world's tallest structure, is it? And then there are the artificial islands, the Palm Jumeirah, the World Islands, and others. These are the epitome of Dubai's obsession with creating luxury where none naturally exists. To make these islands, they had to dredge massive amounts of sand from the sea, sand that wasn't even right for the job. It's all about creating something out of nothing, something that looks good on a brochure. But once the initial gloss wears off, the reality becomes clearer. These islands are sinking, and without constant expensive maintenance, they'll be swallowed by the sea. Now, let's talk about the workers. Dubai may look like a haven for tourists, influencers, and the ultra-wealthy, but the reality for the people who build the city is much darker. Over 90% of the UAE's population is made up of immigrants, many of them from countries like India, Bangladesh, and the Philippines. These workers don't come to Dubai by choice. They're often desperate for work and lured by the promise of better pay and a better life. But the truth is much harsher. Migrant workers live in overcrowded conditions, often in camps far from the city center. They're paid a fraction of what they were promised, with wages being slashed or delayed altogether. Some workers are even put into debt before they arrive in the UAE, forced to pay exorbitant recruitment fees, sometimes upwards of $22,000, just for the chance to work. Once they arrive, their passports are confiscated, leaving them trapped in a foreign country with no legal recourse. It's bonded labor. And it's happening right under the noses of tourists enjoying the luxuries Dubai has to offer. The UAE's government has made promises to improve conditions for migrant workers. But when the pandemic hit, those promises were left unfulfilled. Many workers were left to starve in overcrowded camps, their salaries withheld, and their health risks ignored. And all this happens while Dubai's leadership continues to promote the city as a glamorous paradise for the rich. The workers who build the skyscrapers, the hotels, the luxury resorts, no one remembers them once the project is done. They're forgotten, left to rot in the desert heat, their labor exploited for the benefit of the few. As Dubai continues to grow, so too does the disconnect between its ultra-wealthy elites and the migrant laborers who power the city's construction and service industries. In a place like Dubai, it's easy to get lost in the glitz and the glam, but the true cost is felt by those living on the margins. Dubai has used its oil wealth to fuel an economic transformation, making it one of the richest cities in the world. The government's gamble on projects like artificial islands and luxury resorts hasn't just been about image, it's about survival. They know the oil won't last forever, and so they've tried to pivot to industries like tourism, finance, and real estate. The thing is, those industries aren't built to last on their own. It's the same story we've seen before in history. Cities that seem to rise from nothing, built on conquest, or in Dubai's case, rapid development, only to crumble once the foundations give way. Look at the Mongol Empire, which brought unimaginable wealth to its capital, Karakorum, only to see it reduced to rubble once the empire collapsed. In a way, Dubai mirrors that rise and fall. Its rapid growth, its focus on creating iconic landmarks, all built to impress, but without a long-term foundation to hold them up. The problem is that the city's entire model is unsustainable. The wealth on display is artificial. There's nothing truly timeless about the buildings, the islands, or the monuments. The Burj Khalifa may stand as the tallest building in the world today, but in a few decades, who's going to maintain it? It's already dealing with issues like sewage and infrastructure problems, and with the city's harsh desert environment, these issues will only get worse. The same goes for the artificial islands. Those islands were never meant to stand the test of time. Without constant maintenance, they'll erode and vanish into the sea. And that's where the true tragedy lies. Dubai isn't just about the wealth it shows. It's about what gets left behind. The migrant workers who helped build the city's luxury towers, malls, and islands aren't treated as valuable parts of society. They're disposable. Once they've built the next monument to excess, they're forgotten. Their lives are barely acknowledged by the government or the wealthy, even though it's their labor that makes it all possible. The city is built on an illusion. The artificial beaches, the glittering towers, the luxury cars, all of it designed to make Dubai seem like the paradise it's marketed as. But what's the cost of this image? Who's paying the price for the luxury, the fake islands, and the endless thirst for new, shiny objects? It's the workers who live in substandard conditions, who risk their lives every day, and who, when their contracts are up, are sent back home, their dreams unfulfilled. Dubai is all about the superficial, the shiny, new, and bold. The artificial islands, the tallest buildings, and the luxury hotels are all monuments to excess, not sustainability. They're built to impress, to lure in tourists, to attract the rich. But what happens when the facade cracks? When the cracks in the sand become too deep to cover up with more concrete and steel? The truth is, all of Dubai's extravagant developments, the artificial islands, the towering skyscrapers, and the grand hotels, are part of a much bigger plan. A plan designed to distract. They're distractions from the real issues, distractions that mask the deeper cracks in the city's foundation. The UAE knows that once the oil runs out, they'll need to rely on something else to keep the economy going. And these flashy projects are their way of ensuring they remain relevant. But there's a flaw in this thinking. It's a mirage in the desert. Just like the artificial islands which are sinking into the sea, Dubai's entire identity is built on borrowed time. The projects that stand out today, whether it's the Palm Islands, the Burj Khalifa, or even the plans for a replica of the moon, are all examples of materialism gone overboard. They're not landmarks that are built to last. They're monuments to excess, and they're empty of any deeper meaning. While these projects might dazzle visitors and hold the attention of tourists for a few days, they fail to address the city's most pressing issue: sustainability. Dubai has put all its energy into impressing the world with grandiose, wasteful constructions, but it hasn't done much to invest in the one thing that could make it last: its people. In fact, it's done the opposite. The migrant workers who have built Dubai's landmarks are often treated like expendable tools, used up and discarded when the job is done. There's no long-term strategy to ensure that the city will thrive once the spotlight fades. And it's not just the workers. There's a pervasive sense of shallow consumerism that runs through the city. Dubai has become a playground for the super wealthy, a place where the rich can come and show off their luxury cars, their yachts, and their mansions. But outside of that bubble, it's a city built on exploitation. The workers who construct the luxury apartments, the hotels, and the massive shopping malls live in overcrowded camps, isolated from the life they're helping to build. The promise of a better life that lured them to Dubai often turns into a nightmare of debt, poor living conditions, and hopelessness. Yet, the government pushes forward, touting their extravagant projects as symbols of progress, of modernity. But look a little closer, and you'll see the instability beneath the surface. The idea of building islands in the sea, or constructing replicas of the moon, speaks to a kind of delusion of grandeur. The city is so focused on what it can build and create for the world to see that it's lost sight of what it needs to do to build for the future. Dubai's sustainability efforts are practically non-existent. The city doesn't have the natural greenery or the ecosystem to support such rapid growth. The sand that was used to create the islands wasn't even the right kind, causing environmental destruction in the process. The city's attempts at creating green spaces, like the Million Tree Project, have faltered. 80% of the trees died out in the harsh desert heat because there was no water, no resources, and no long-term planning in place to sustain them. The city's environmental promises are little more than empty words. This pattern of waste and destruction is part of Dubai's broader identity. It's a city built on a dream that was never meant to be sustainable. It's built on an image of wealth, luxury, and excess. But when the dust settles and the facade falls away, what's left? A barren desert landscape, a skyline of steel and glass that may look impressive now, but which will slowly erode with time. The idea of building artificial islands or a moon-shaped luxury hotel might seem innovative, but in the end, they're just distractions, empty monuments to vanity. Dubai's illusions of grandeur can only last for so long. The city's entire foundation is built on a cycle of excessive materialism and artificial allure. When you peel back the layers of shiny buildings, mega projects, and luxury resorts, you start to see the truth. The UAE is running out of ways to cover the cracks. It's a city that's all about surface-level beauty, but it doesn't take much to realize that this is a fragile structure. One of the biggest problems with Dubai's rapid rise is that it's been built on a foundation of exploitation. Sure, the city shines with wealth, luxury, and opulence, but this prosperity isn't shared equally. The workers who build the skyscrapers, roads, hotels, and resorts that make Dubai famous are treated as nothing more than tools, their lives and their rights secondary to the city's economic goals. These are the people who keep the city ticking, yet they're the ones who bear the brunt of the mistreatment. In many ways, Dubai's treatment of its migrant labor force is its darkest secret. These workers, mostly from countries like India, Nepal, Bangladesh, and the Philippines, come to Dubai hoping to build a better future. What they find instead are overcrowded labor camps, appalling living conditions, and wages far below what they were promised. The UAE's legal system doesn't offer much in the way of protection for these workers either. Most of them are forced to work in extreme conditions with no recourse when their contracts are violated. When the pandemic hit, promises from the government that migrant workers would be supported fell by the wayside. Workers were left to fend for themselves, living in camps with no food or safety net. Meanwhile, the city's elite continued to live their lives of luxury, unaffected by the suffering just beneath the surface. This is not a case of ignorance or a few bad actors. This is systemic exploitation built into the very fabric of Dubai's development model. Workers are lured in by promises of a better life, only to be trapped in debt by extortionate recruitment fees. Their passports are confiscated upon arrival, leaving them unable to leave or report abuse. They're bound to the city by the weight of their debts and the false promises made by recruiters. And the system that keeps them in check is one of control. They have few rights, no union, no way to protect themselves, and little hope of improving their situation. But for the tourists, for the rich influencers, for the business elite, Dubai is presented as a paradise, a city where everything is possible, a place where money flows freely and life is one long party. For the people who make up the city's privileged class, this image is easy to sell. After all, they don't have to live in the cramped labor camps or deal with the reality of Dubai's hidden underbelly. They can afford the luxurious apartments, the five-star hotels, and the sprawling shopping malls. They live in a bubble where nothing ever threatens the polished surface. And for many, that's enough. However, that bubble is at risk of popping. Dubai's reliance on foreign workers, most of whom come from impoverished backgrounds, leaves the city vulnerable. The workers who have been key to the city's growth don't have the same opportunities to succeed, to climb the social ladder. In Dubai, if you don't have wealth, you don't stand a chance. The wealthy few are the ones who control everything: real estate, businesses, the very economy that keeps the city moving. Everyone else is disposable. Dubai's dream of becoming a global tourism and business capital is a dangerous one. It might look appealing from the outside, but once you're inside, you see the cracks. You realize that all the luxury, all the glamour, and all the wealth come at a severe cost. This is a city that built its reputation on the backs of those who had no choice but to work for the promise of a better life. And yet, many never get to see that dream realized. The reality of Dubai isn't as glamorous as it appears. The city's wealth is built on exploitation, environmental destruction, and empty promises. The government's obsession with creating an image of luxury has led to unsustainable growth, and the workers who built Dubai's dream are left to pay the price. Eventually, all of this will catch up with Dubai. It's a question of when, not if. Dubai is a place that has put on a show that dazzles the world with grand structures, artificial islands, and a lifestyle that seems too perfect to be true. But underneath all the glitz and glamour, there's a harsh reality. The UAE's dependency on oil and its frantic attempt to pivot to non-oil industries like tourism, real estate, and finance have created a city that's both unsustainable and built on inequality. Dubai's stunning skyline, its world-famous landmarks, and its obsession with luxury are all facades. Behind them is a city teetering on the edge, propped up by exploitation and short-term thinking. The city's problems go far beyond just the treatment of migrant workers. It's not just about bad labor practices. It's about a fundamental failure to build for the long term. Dubai's development has been fueled by a desire to impress, to create something that would draw the eyes of the world. The Burj Khalifa, the Palm Jumeirah, the World Islands, they're all symbols of ambition. But they're also symbols of what happens when a city is more concerned with creating a mirage than with building something sustainable. The Palm Islands, for example, are one of the most ambitious projects in Dubai's history. On paper, it's a marvel of engineering, a series of artificial islands that expand the city's coastline and offer luxury accommodations to the wealthy. But the reality is far different. These islands were created by dredging sand from the sea, sand that wasn't even suitable for the job. The result is a coastline that's already sinking. Without constant upkeep, the islands will eventually disappear into the sea, and what's left will be a ruined ecosystem. The same goes for the World Islands, a project that was meant to represent different parts of the globe in miniature. But it's an unfinished, uninhabited disaster, slowly sinking into the water. just like the artificial islands. Even the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, isn't immune to these flaws. Sure, it's an architectural wonder, but it's also a symbol of the city's obsession with height, with being the biggest and the best. The reality, however, is that it's plagued with issues, including inadequate sewage systems, which led to a viral video showing a fleet of sewage trucks hauling waste from the building. It's a reminder that for all the splendor on the outside, there are serious flaws behind the scenes. What Dubai's leadership fails to see is that these projects, these monuments to excess, aren't enough to build a truly lasting city. Without a commitment to sustainability, both in terms of the environment and the people who live and work there, Dubai is destined to crumble under the weight of its own ambition. The city's reliance on migrant labor, its environmental destruction, and its superficial wealth have all been ignored in favor of a flashy image. But that image is hollow, and it's built on a shaky foundation. Dubai's lack of sustainability is also reflected in its environmental policies. The city has made some token efforts to plant trees and create green spaces, but these projects have largely been abandoned or failed. The Million Tree Project, for example, was an ambitious attempt to grow trees in the desert. But by 2020, 80% of the trees had died. In a city that has invested so much in artificial luxury, the environment is an afterthought. The same goes for the city's efforts to build artificial islands and luxury hotels. Projects that are all about impressing tourists and investors, but offer little in the way of long-term sustainability. The real tragedy of Dubai is that it could have been something else, a place where wealth and opportunity were built on fairness, sustainability, and long-term planning. Instead, it's a place where the rich live in a bubble, while the laborers who build the city's monuments live in squalor. Dubai's leadership has failed to create a truly sustainable city, and as time passes, the cracks in the foundation will only grow wider. Dubai may be safe for tourists and for the rich, but for the workers who keep the city running, it's a different story. The city's obsession with materialism and excess has led to a place where wealth is concentrated in the hands of a few, and everyone else is left to pick up the pieces. Dubai's future is uncertain, and it's not clear how long the facade will last before it crumbles under the weight of its own unsustainable growth. Dubai is a city built on illusion, and like all illusions, it's bound to fade. When the dust settles and the world sees what's really been built, they'll realize that what Dubai has created is nothing more than a mirage, a temporary spectacle that, like all things, will eventually disappear.